I wasn't snooping. I was scared. You don't just wake up one day and say, I think she's cheating with our therapist. That's not where your mind goes, not at first. It starts with something smaller, something you could ignore. Like the silence in the car ride home. That used to be our decompressed time. We'd argue in therapy, yeah, say the hard stuff. But afterward, we'd hit the coffee shop around the corner. She liked the lemon scones. I liked seeing her without the guarded tone. Then, after the third session, she said, let's go separately next week. I nodded, because boundaries, space. I thought that's what healthy people did. The next Thursday, she walked out of the house wearing that black blouse, the one from our anniversary in Charleston, the one that never made it to the dry cleaner because she said it smelled like good memories. She'd done her hair, not curled, straight, ironed flat like she used to when we first met. And she had on lipstick, bright rose, not fire red sexy but intentional, chosen. I remember saying, you look good. She smiled, but not at me. It was like the kind of smile you give a thought you're not ready to say out loud. That's when the coffee shop tradition ended, and when the longer sessions started. She'd come home looser, softer, like she'd just cried and been kissed, you know what I mean. She'd say things like, it's just a lot to process. Then take her glass of wine and go sit on the deck with a blanket, watching the sky like it owed her an answer. And I started listening to the air in our house. I mean it. I'd stand in the hallway and just listen to how quiet it had gotten, like even the house knew something was off. I wasn't sleeping much by then. One night after dinner, meatloaf and too much salt, I remember she left her purse on the kitchen counter, wide open. Her phone was half tucked in. Notifications off, not on silent off, no preview screen, no buzzing. I stared at it while she loaded the dishwasher. It sat there like a trap or a test. One I didn't take. I just kept looking at it, wondering if I'd hear his name if I said, "Hey Siri." That night I couldn't shake it. She came to bed humming something soft, and I stared at the ceiling, tracking the fan blades like they had answers. In the morning, I stopped by an electronics store on my way to work, told the kid behind the counter I was doing a documentary interview. He smiled like he wanted to ask more, but didn't. I bought a lav mic, wireless, the kind you can hide in a purse or a coat pocket, decent battery, clean audio. I went home early and tucked it under her wallet, right below the chapstick she never used. She didn't notice. Or maybe she did and just didn't care. The next Thursday, she left for her session. And I sat at the kitchen table for an hour after she left, just sitting, listening to the quiet again. It wasn't about catching her. It was about not losing my mind. Because I needed to know if I was crazy. Or just finally ready to hear the truth. I used to think broken marriages looked loud. Like shouting matches, slammed doors, dramatic exits and cops on the lawn. Ours didn't sound like that. It sounded like the coffee maker starting without anyone asking if you wanted a cup. Or two toothbrushes that never touched the same drawer. It sounded like nothing. And that scared me more than yelling ever could. Thing is, we weren't always like that. 2 years ago, I'd have said we were solid. Not perfect, who is, but solid. The kind of couple people invited to dinner parties to prove love still existed. She used to reach for my hand under tables, thumb tracing my knuckle while she talked about something someone else said. That little gesture, that used to wreck me. Every time. And when we fought, because of course we did, we had this rule. No matter how bad it got, we ended the night holding hands, even if it was just for 10 seconds, even if it was in silence. It meant I'm still here. That rule lasted 9 years, through layoffs, her mom's cancer, one miscarriage we never told anyone about. Then one night 6 months ago, I reached for her hand, and she turned out the light instead. Didn't even say good night. I laid there, blinking in the dark, thinking maybe she just forgot. But forgetting became habit. 3 weeks later, she brought up therapy. Said she didn't want to wake up resenting each other. I said, are we? She looked away, took a breath, said, not yet. She cried when she said it, voice shaking. Her knees pulled up on the couch like she was bracing for impact. I thought that meant she still cared. And maybe she did. But now I wonder if she was crying because she already knew the outcome and didn't want to feel guilty for how it would end. She found him on some app, said his bio talked about emotional courage and secure detachment. She laughed reading it, said, he sounds like you. I asked if we should look together, find someone we both clicked with. She said it's just a consultation, don't overthink. She booked the sessions, paid up front, told me she wanted to do the first one solo to get a sense of his energy. I didn't argue. I never argued with her choices back then. That was part of the problem. By the second session, we were both attending. He seemed calm, soft-spoken, asked good questions, too many about my role in emotional shutdowns, but I figured maybe that's what I needed. After all, she said, I'd been emotionally unavailable since the layoff. I'd been building a side business to survive late nights, no days off, and somehow that made me distant. She said she felt alone. I thought, isn't that what we're fixing? The third session, she teared up talking about feeling unseen, said I didn't compliment her anymore, didn't notice her energy. I did notice, I just didn't say it fast enough maybe. That night I bought flowers, nothing fancy, grocery store bouquet, but I trimmed the stems and left them on her nightstand with a note, I see you. She smiled when she read it, but didn't kiss me. Not even a thank you. A few days later, I caught her watching something on her laptop, headphones in. She slammed it shut when I walked in the room. Said it was a podcast, something about relationships. I believed her, because you do when it's someone you love. You believe even when you shouldn't. You hand over benefit after benefit thinking you're being mature, fair, generous. But generosity in the wrong hands isn't noble. It's just ammunition. That was the last week she let me pick her up after therapy. She said it feels weird, like a school drop-off. I said it's just parking, I don't mind. She said I do. So I stopped showing up. Stopped waiting outside in my car, scrolling my phone, pretending like I wasn't counting the minutes. The last time I saw them through the glass door, she was laughing. Hand on his arm. Like a woman finally being seen. She told me not to come to session 4. Said she needed space, that I was taking up too much of the room, that her voice was getting lost under mine. That hit hard. Not because it wasn't true, I do talk a lot when I'm nervous, but because it was the first time she made therapy sound like hers, not ours. I told myself maybe this was what growth looked like. Messy, uneven. Maybe she just needed a few solo sessions to get her footing. But then she stopped sharing what they talked about. I asked gently, like, anything come up I should think about? She'd shrug. Same stuff, childhood, communication styles, it's not really about you. Not about me. Even when it was literally about our marriage. She started texting more. Never smiled at the screen. Just stared, responded, and flipped it face down the second I walked in. Once I came into the kitchen and said, hey. She jumped like I'd caught her stealing. Laughed it off, said I scared her. Then put her phone in her robe pocket and changed the subject to dinner. The next morning, I noticed her passcode had changed. 4 digits to 6. The screen lit up when she thought I was asleep, and her fingers moved like muscle memory. I didn't ask. Not because I was scared of the answer. Because I already knew it. I started noticing the little things. Like how she wore perfume to therapy now, Not just any perfume, the one. The bottle I got her on our second anniversary in Asheville. The one she said made her feel grown and sexy. She used to save it for weddings and date nights. Now it was for Thursday afternoons at 2:00 p.m. She never hugged me when she came back. Just walked in, tossed her purse on the counter, said hey, and disappeared into the bathroom. I'd hear the shower run, even when she didn't go to the gym. That one got me. Because it didn't make sense. Why shower after therapy? Unless you needed to rinse something off. That night I watched her sleep. Not in a creepy way, I just stared at her face, trying to read the version of her that lived behind closed eyelids. Her breathing was steady, her mouth slightly open, like she used to do when she napped during road trips. I tried to picture what she looked like in his office, not as my wife, but as the version she'd become. Was she laughing? Did she cry in front of him? Did he touch her shoulder when she talked about me? I wasn't jealous. I was displaced. Like I'd been demoted in a job I didn't know I was failing. She started calling therapy emotional recalibration. Said the sessions were intense and layered, but never mentioned his name, not once. Always just he. He says I'm dissociating when I smile too much. He says I need to stop over-explaining myself. Funny thing is, I agreed with those things. I'd said them for years. But when I said them, it was criticism. When he said them, it was insight. I could feel it, my words losing weight in her world. He was making sense, I was making noise. I remember one night we were watching TV, some courtroom drama. Therapist gets caught sleeping with a patient. Total cliché. She laughed, a single snort like it wasn't even worth her breath. Then she said, that would never happen in real life. Boundaries matter too much. I nodded, but I clocked the way she said it. Not offended, not outraged, just a little too rehearsed. Like someone who'd practiced the line. The next morning, I opened the closet and noticed a shirt of hers missing. Green silk button-up, the one that only came out for special occasions. And I thought therapy on Thursdays, laundry day is Friday. That shirt was in the hamper and now it's not. It was a tiny moment, barely even evidence. But my stomach dropped like it was. And that's when I stopped asking questions. Because when you stop asking, they stop lying. And that silence, it becomes your only truth. She said she had a longer session that day. Didn't say why. Just walked past me with that same purse, hair still damp from her shower, keys already in hand. No kiss, no eye contact, just don't wait up. And she was gone. I watched her drive away from the living room window. I don't think she even saw me standing there. The mic had been in her purse for 3 weeks by then. Same position, tucked under her wallet, behind the receipts she never threw away. Every Thursday I'd swap the battery and check the files. Most weeks, nothing. Just rustling, maybe a few mumbles too far from the mic to make out. But that day the audio was crystal clear. She came home around 5. Said traffic was bad. I nodded, kept my eyes on the chopping board, diced onions, garlic, something to keep my hands busy. She poured herself a glass of wine, took it upstairs, and closed the door. I waited until she was asleep. Slid out of bed, crept down the hallway barefoot so the floorboards wouldn't betray me, and opened my laptop in the garage. I hit play. At first it was just sounds, keys clinking, her footsteps, the faint creak of a door. Then his voice. Glad you could make it. She laughed. The kind of laugh I hadn't heard in months. Not nervous, not polite. Open, familiar, like they'd already kissed. She said I had to tell him I was going to a late session. He doesn't ask anymore. Pause. Then her again. Is that bad? He said no, it just means he trusts you. Silence, and then I dreamt about you again, she said. Her voice got small. It felt wrong, but also like the first time I've really felt something in a long time. He didn't respond right away. I could hear breathing, furniture shifting, like someone was leaning closer. Then he whispered, "Do you want to talk about it?" She said, "I think about you when I'm lying next to him." My hand clenched the arm of the chair. I didn't realize it until my knuckles went numb. She kept talking. "I know this crosses lines. I know what you could lose. But when I leave your office, I feel like myself again, like someone who could be loved." I paused the recording. Sat there. Not crying, not yelling, just still. Like the garage had lost all its air. I should have stopped listening. I should have closed the file, deleted it, said maybe I misheard. Maybe it was a role-play exercise. Maybe this was some cutting-edge therapy technique no one had explained to me. But I didn't stop. I kept listening. She asked him if he ever thought about her outside of the sessions. He said more than I should. Then they started talking about logistics. Hotels, safe locations, times when I'd be at work or out with friends. They were planning, coordinating. Like I was an obstacle, a shift to work around. Not a husband, not even a person. Just a variable in their math problem. I sat in the dark for the full 38 minutes. Didn't pause again. Didn't flinch when I heard her laugh, when I heard the way her voice changed around him. That part hit hardest. Her voice was lighter, like someone unburdened. She wasn't angry, bitter, hurt, not the way she'd been with me. She sounded free. And I hated that I knew exactly what that meant. I didn't tell anyone. Didn't call a friend, didn't text my brother. Just sat there on that old garage chair until the sun started to rise through the frosted window. Then I stood up, walked into the kitchen and made her coffee. Almond milk, no sugar, extra hot. Just the way she liked it. She came downstairs 20 minutes later, still in her robe, scrolling her phone like nothing had changed. She took the mug without looking up, said thanks. I said long session. She nodded, yeah. Then she kissed my cheek. Just once. I stared at her as she walked away. And thought she has no idea I know, not yet. That was the moment something shifted. Not in anger. In clarity. Because knowing changes everything. It doesn't make you scream. It doesn't make you break things. It makes you sharp. And quiet. Like a man who just learned what he needs to do. I didn't say a word. Not the next day, not the next week. She kept going to therapy like nothing had changed. Same blouse, same perfume, same routine. But it felt different now, not because she changed, but because I had. I saw it all clearly. The choreography, the lies dressed as normal. I watched her the way you watch someone from behind glass, not really part of the scene anymore. She'd text him while stirring pasta. Swipe open her phone, type fast, smile small, then lock it again when I walked in. Once I caught a glimpse of the screen, just the contact name, Dr. R. Still saved as her therapist, still pretending. I nodded. I'd already stopped looking for proof. I didn't need any more. I had 38 minutes of audio and enough time-stamped behavior to make it courtroom clear. But I wasn't looking for court. I was looking for quiet leverage. I bought a second hard drive, transferred everything, the recordings, a few bank statements, some screen grabs of sketchy calendar invites she didn't think I noticed, labeled the folder House Projects, buried it deep in a folder of tax docs. She never opened my files. I kept showing up, smiling when she made dinner, laughing at half-funny shows. I even let her complain about how therapy was getting deeper, like I hadn't already heard how deep she let him go. I started playing the role she'd cast me in, the background character, the idiot husband who didn't know better. I leaned into it. And I journaled everything. Every call she took in the bathroom, every change in her voice, every time she came home humming a tune I didn't recognize. One night she asked me if I still found her attractive. I was washing dishes, hands in soap, warm water rising. I said, "You've always been beautiful." She smiled. I didn't say the rest, but now I see the cracks behind it. She started asking less. Noticed I'd stopped asking about her sessions. I think it threw her off. That's the thing about liars. They get nervous when you stop chasing the truth. Because silence, that's not surrender, that's strategy. By week 5, I'd memorized her Thursday pattern. She'd be out from 1:45 to 4:30, sometimes later if they had breakthroughs. That's when I opened her laptop. I knew the password. Her birthday reversed. She thought I'd never remember it. I did. No emails, nothing obvious. But I checked the trash. There it was, a PDF download she deleted. Hotel reservation. Same day as her last extended session. The guest name. No name at all. Just walk-in confirmed. I screenshotted it, added it to the archive. Didn't confront, didn't ask. Instead, I started separating our accounts. Slowly. Joint card. I paid it down and removed myself. Streaming services. Changed the passwords and let her think they were just glitching. Crypto wallet. Transferred the small balance to a private ledger. Legal, traceable, but buried in protocol she wouldn't know how to access. She once said, "I don't understand crypto, it's your thing." She was right. So I made sure it stayed mine. The next Thursday, I watched her leave from the upstairs window. Her purse swinging gently, keys in hand, that confident walk that used to make me proud. Now it just looked hollow. I didn't cry. I pulled out my phone and hit record on a voice memo. Not for her. For myself. I said, "You're not crazy. You're just finally seeing clearly. Don't forget this feeling." I saved it, locked it, and labeled it July Fog. That night she came home late, hair tousled, cheeks flushed. She said, "Sorry, traffic was hell." I handed her a glass of wine. She kissed my cheek and said, "You're being so good lately. I think therapy's working." I smiled and said, "Maybe we're just learning to trust each other." She clinked her glass to mine. Didn't realize I just fed her back the same script she'd been using on me. That was the last night I touched her. Not out of anger. Out of clarity. I'd seen what she looked like when she was telling the truth. And this wasn't it. I didn't need her to confess. She'd already told me everything, just not with words. So I stopped waiting for closure and started planning the exit. I didn't rush. I wasn't sloppy. I moved slow, the kind of slow you learn from watching people lie and realizing patience is the sharpest knife in the drawer. The first thing I did was call my sister. Not to vent, just to talk logistics. She's good with paperwork. Used to work corporate finance before she had kids. I told her I needed help setting up a family trust, just something basic to protect assets. She didn't ask questions. Within a week, we'd moved the remainder of my personal savings, the money from my side business, some stocks I'd quietly sold, into a protected trust. Legal, transparent, and completely separate from anything shared in the marriage. She couldn't touch it. The prenup didn't cover crypto. We signed it before Bitcoin was a real thing. Back then, we were young and stupid, and she called it nerd gambling. Now, that wallet was worth more than our house. I moved it offline, cold storage, printed the key and locked it in a safety deposit box at a bank under my business account. I didn't take anything from her. I didn't even touch the joint checking. I just made sure that when it came time to divide, there'd be nothing left of me to split. Then came the audio. I'd cleaned it up using editing software, removed background noise, bumped the gain, sharpened the vocals. Her voice, his voice. Clear as confession. I didn't post it, didn't threaten. I sent it privately, directly, to the state licensing board. Attached a short letter. Client 217 and Dr. Redacted appear to have engaged in an unethical and potentially exploitative relationship during the course of scheduled therapy sessions. Audio attached, time-stamped and unaltered. I'm not seeking action, just truth. I didn't sign it emotionally. No anger, no demands. Just facts. If they were going to bury it, I wanted them to know I'd buried copies in other places, too. I stored the file in 3 cloud locations, 1 external drive, and a folder labeled Garden Receipts on an old USB she'd never think to touch. By the time the state board reached out to him, I'd already wiped the mic, returned it to the store, and cleared my browser history. She found out 2 weeks later. We were sitting on the back deck, late September. She had a blanket draped over her knees, reading some self-help book like she was still trying to grow. I was sipping whiskey, pretending to be tired. Her phone rang. She went pale. Didn't answer it. I knew who it was. I'd listed both their names in the complaint. She stared at the screen for a long time, then turned to me and said, "Can we talk?" I said sure. She hesitated, eyes darting like she was calculating which version of the truth to feed me. Then softly, "How long have you known?" I sipped again and said, "Since you stopped holding my hand." She didn't respond, didn't cry, didn't defend him. She just looked out over the fence like the trees might tell her what to do next. The silence between us stretched out like a hallway with no door at the end. I stood up, walked back inside, and left her sitting there. A week later I filed. No announcement, no fight, just paperwork. I gave her the house, the car, even let her keep the vacation points we'd saved. Because none of that mattered. What mattered was that I was gone before she ever realized I was leaving. She called me cold in the lawyer's office. Said I didn't fight for us. I looked at her calm and said, "I already did, you just weren't in the ring." When I walked out, she didn't follow me. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't know that by then I'd already changed every password, closed every shared account, and locked my financials like a vault. I didn't ghost her. I just stopped being available. And that silence, that was louder than anything I could have said. She didn't scream when I left. She unraveled quietly. Emails at first, not angry, not apologetic, just confused. "Can we talk? I feel like you just disappeared." One of them said, "This isn't you." She was right. It was. The man who stayed through the lies. The man who made her coffee while she snuck off to hotel rooms. That version of me died the moment I hit play in the garage. I wasn't that man anymore. She sent a voice note one night. I didn't listen to it. Just watched the waveform pulse on my screen, silent and small, until it timed out. I don't need her voice in my head anymore. That space is mine again. She called my sister. Tried to say I was having an episode, that I'd cut off everything too suddenly. Said I was being emotionally reactive, like I was the unstable one for finally walking away. My sister asked her one question: "Did you sleep with your therapist?" She hung up. I didn't block her, I just stopped replying. She changed the Netflix password 2 weeks later. I let her. I'd already canceled the payment under my card. She sent a final email, long, wordy, full of circular logic and half regrets. The subject line was, "Closure." I didn't open it. Some things don't deserve a reply. Her therapist's license got suspended. Temporary, pending review. Probably some slap on the wrist unless someone sues. But his name won't shine the same way in search engines again. She lost her favorite mirror. She doesn't even know it yet. I moved into a quiet place on the edge of town. Nothing fancy, one bedroom, bare walls, a desk, and a chair. It's temporary, but it's mine. Every night, I fall asleep without checking my phone. Every morning, I wake up without wondering if someone's lying to me. I saw her once, at the grocery store. She didn't notice me. She was wearing a gray coat and talking to someone on the phone, laughing, but not like she used to. This laugh was sharp, performed, the kind of laugh that asks, "Do I still sound desirable?" I stood there watching from behind the seasonal aisle, not hiding, just observing. And I thought, that woman doesn't know me anymore. And I don't miss her. I miss the way I thought she was. That's the hardest part, grieving a version of someone who never existed outside your own hope. But even that grief feels quieter now. I don't talk about her to friends. I don't journal about the lies anymore. I just breathe. That's how I knew I was free. People ask if I miss her. I don't. I miss the version of me who believed in her. The man who thought love, real love, was strong enough to survive anything. Even betrayal dressed as therapy. I miss trusting without checking, speaking without strategy, reaching for her hand without wondering who she was texting. But her? No, I don't miss her. She weaponized healing, turned therapy, something sacred, into a cover story. That's what still stings, if anything does. Not the sex, not the cheating, not even the lies. It's the idea that she looked me in the eyes and said, "I want us to get better," when really, she'd already found someone else to blame me to. She used our marriage as a disguise, a backdrop for her exit. And I helped her paint it. I gave her space, encouraged the sessions, told myself discomfort meant growth. I handed her the match. She burned the bridge and told people I walked away. I don't hate her. That's the difference. Hate is loud, it takes energy, passion. I have none left for her. What I have now is clarity. And quiet. There's a peace that comes when you realize closure doesn't come from the other person. It comes when you stop needing their version of the story. Mine is enough. I was faithful. I was patient. I gave more grace than she ever earned. And when I finally left, I didn't break anything. I just took the truth with me. I sleep well now. Not because everything's okay, but because I know what's real. And that's all I ever wanted. This is Revenge with Camden. If you've ever been backstabbed by someone you'd take a bullet for, hit subscribe. You're not alone.